Hi, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining us for Code U Demo Day. We are so excited to have you here and for you all to see some of the really awesome projects that our students made over the course of their cohort. Just a few quick announcements from Code U. We do have a job placement update. We're at over 1,320 job placements to date, which is really exciting between all of our programs. We also are going to be celebrating 10 years of Code Louisville a little later in about a month or so. So keep an eye out for an invitation to that. I was part of that very first big kind of cohort that they had in 2015. So I'm excited to celebrate the longevity of the program along with some of my fellow alumni. We have a few of our team members on the call today. One of them is Allie Rippey. If you are an employer and you have not gotten introduced to someone on our team to talk about how we can help you with employment, or if you're a student or graduate who is looking to find employment, feel free to reach out to her. It's Allie, ALLI, at codeu.org. And just a quick plug for mentors. So we do need some mentors for our July Pathways session. We are going to be looking for mentors in web development, data analysis, and in IT Google support certification. If you're interested in mentoring, you can find more information at codeu.org on our mentor page, or feel free to just reach out to me directly and I can get you pointed to the right folks. A quick overview of today. So you are going to see 9 presentations from students who graduated in our August 2024 cohort. So they started courses back in August and they wrapped up in early April. The pathways that we had and that you'll see presentations from today include web development with JavaScript, data analysis with Python, and software development with C#. They also come from all of our current service regions. So we will have folks from the greater Louisville area, greater Cincinnati/Northern Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, and then the greater Lexington region. So today for our event, we have 9 presentations. Each of our presenters will be on for about 5 to 6 minutes showing an overview of their project. At the end, we are going to have a Q&A session. So if you've been with us before, you might have been part of our breakout rooms that we had. We're kind of switching it up this time. So if you have questions for the presenters as we go along, feel free to throw them in the chat. Our team will take notes of that and write them down. We will definitely have room for 1 question per person, but we'll try to get to as many as we can after the presentations are over. If we are unable to get your question answered, we'll also make sure that we can get you in touch with the presenter to get an answer from them afterward. All right, so we are going to just go ahead and hop right into it. Our very first presenter tonight is Jeannie Spalding. Jeannie is a data analysis grad who is from Cincinnati. So Jeannie, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. Thanks so much.
So first off, welcome to my project on national values and happiness, regression analysis. As she said, my name is Jeannie Spalding. I recently moved to Cincinnati, Ohio from the Northern Kentucky region. I'm currently a data management specialist at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and I'm looking to transition into a more analytical role within data science. I hold a master's degree in integrative studies where I focused on research methodologies and statistics. And through my education and work experiences, I've become adept at the data lifecycle and in deriving insights from the complex data sets within both academic and clinical research. However, I found that I was missing a key programming piece in my skill set that is central to data science. So enter CodeU. I chose CodeU for the extensive resources they provided, the learning support from the experienced mentors, and then also the hands-on coding experiences from the projects and the interactives. So why I chose national values and happiness. Each year, the World Happiness Report is released usually in the spring. And when it is released, I always like to look it up just to see what the ranking is for the countries for that particular year. It was just released recently when I was brainstorming ideas for this particular project. And during my search for data sets, I stumbled upon the World Values Survey, which is comprised of societal beliefs, values, and cultural norms. And after reviewing the data set, I immediately recognized I could take the two data sets and put them together for an exploration. So I performed a multiple linear regression analysis utilizing Python to explore the relationship between World Values Survey domains and happiness score. In my analysis, I used visual representations of scatter plots to individually visualize potential relationship between each domain item and happiness score, as well as a correlation matrix, which I used to visualize the potential strong relationships among domain items. My first analysis was comprised of 2 major and 8 minor national values domain items. Nearly 91% of the change in happiness score was explained by these items. However, none of the items showed to be significant in the analysis. And a very large condition number suggested that there were strong relationships that existed among the items. So I determined to remove the 8 minor domain items and rerun the analysis. My second analysis with the minor domain items removed left 2 items, overall national values and independence values. Nearly 59% of the change in happiness score was explained by these national values domain items. And independence values did show significant for having a relationship with happiness score. The relationship was a positive relationship, meaning when the independence values score would go up, that happiness score would also go up. And the limitation in my project was sample size. The World Values Survey covers approximately 100 countries over the course of several years, and the World Happiness Report surveys approximately 140 countries each year. My analysis looked at a single year time span, and even though all of my World Values Survey countries joined with the World Happiness Report, it resulted in a small sample size. So my recommendations for future analyses would be to replicate the analysis with a larger sample size, possibly utilizing a multiple year time span, and to explore individual minor domain effects on happiness score. The challenges that I had in this project were surprisingly my scatter plots. My initial scatter plots came out very convoluted and messy, and I determined clarity would be better than complexity, so I built a function which allowed me to easily create 10 individual scatter plots without rewriting the code each time. And additionally, the sample size on analyses does limit the application of my findings. And what I've learned about myself during this process is that imposter syndrome is real. I have gained confidence in my coding, and I have found that I have grown as a data professional in both my knowledge and my capabilities. And then please feel free to reach out. I invite you to call, text, or email. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on GitHub. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. That was fantastic. Now we are going to move on to Landon Pantoja. Landon is a software development grad who is from the Louisville region.
Hello. All right. So, hi, my name is Lana Pantoja. I am a technical artist and software developer. A brief history into my journey so far. So, I started off with sculpting, a little bit of painting, and some mixed media, and this eventually led into 2D digital art. So, with the 2D digital art, I thought it was really cool that with just a little bit of animation, I could actually make my art come to life. This eventually led into looking into game development, 2D game development. I thought it was really cool that um, I could actually have the user control my art. I thought it was pretty neat. This project I made in Adobe Flash back in 2015 using Java. It was actually my first coding experience ever. And I wanted to delve even deeper and see what more I could do with this. And that led me into development with software and 3D game design. Some of the projects that I've worked on, this project here is actually an ongoing personal game project that I'm working on that I started in 2021. Since then, I've done an internship for Healing Hand Tech, uh, and we worked in Unity. I've also done a game jam in 2024 that lasted about a week long. And then since then, my final thing would be capstone or my capstone for Code U. This capstone was called Meme Oracle. It's essentially a meme predicting app. A little bit more about myself. I'm not that great with social media. Within like 5 to 20 minutes, I just get tired, bored of it, and just I put it down. So unfortunately, I don't get to learn about some of the upcoming memes like Chill Guy here, or Popcat, or Pepe the Frog. So I created an app that could essentially do all the doom scrolling for me. Um, and so what my app does is it scrapes through subreddits of my choosing, and it'll take some of the most popular memes and print it onto a database. And that database is my app. So some of the key features within that app, it'll show you the title of the popular app. It'll show you the website, or you can heart it like you can do in every popular social media app. And then you can also view from the past 7 days to the past month or even the past year. So after you put your little heart on the meme that you like the most, it'll send you to the saved memes page where it'll give you that full title again. You can click the little web icon and it'll send you to the link that it actually scraped it from. You can give it a star so you can pin it at the top because it's your absolute favorite, or you can give it the trash can because it was terrible and you don't like it anymore. You want it gone. I ran into a lot of challenges along the way. One of them was with that background UI video that you saw on a previous slide. Um, the route it told me to take through the internet was to use the community toolkit. And after many hours trying to figure this out, I figured out you could only use it in .NET 7. So I had two paths to take here. Either I could, do the nightmare of going down to .NET 7, or I could just get a new .NET 8 NuGet package. I decided to go down to .NET 7 because I like a good challenge, and I wanted to learn as much as I could during this project. And I had a little bit extra time. So after 3 days of going down this wormhole, I was like, okay, I've run out of my extra time. I need to go back to .NET 8. It took me about a day to revert these changes, but I got it back, and I figured out it was a pretty easy fix. You just needed to embed the MP4 video in Core Maui. It was already available for me, and I just didn't know at the time. But I learned a lot of skills along the way. I learned the developer command prompt for Visual Studio, the dev tools I had embedded in my app, and .NET downgrading. It's just some useful info to know. And my second biggest challenge was the API keys in Reddit. Um, it took me weeks upon weeks to figure out. It's just a big communication issue within my app. And unfortunately, due to the fact I had a deadline, I had to do a quick fix, and that was hard coding the keys in there just to cancel out the communication throughout all the files. Just put it into one spot, and that's where it's going to communicate with. I do plan on updating it in the future to add better communication, but that's the fix I have for now. I learned some good skills with Postman and Reddit Dev Tools. Also, beyond this project, there are some skills and apps that I learned that I brought into to the program, or that I learned along the way. Would be through Blender, Adobe Creative Suite. I know a lot of them in there. Visual Studio, of course, C# and Java, GitHub. Beyond that, thank you for viewing my presentation. If you would like to get in contact with me, view any of these lovely links or phone number. And thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks so much, Landon. That was great. Really enjoyed your animations. All right, well, moving right along, we have April Sears next. April is a web development grad from Corbin, Kentucky.
Okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Like she had said, my name is April Sears, and I'm excited to share a project that's not just a portfolio piece for me, but it's definitely a real life solution for me. It's very personal. I currently, I currently work as a senior administrative specialist, but in 2024, my life took an unexpected turn when I was diagnosed with a rare genetic disease called vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which basically means my body is a little bit more fragile than other people's bodies due to a collagen mutation. But this diagnosis created a need for remote work and a way to manage my health proactively. Rather than viewing this as a limitation, I saw this as an opportunity to create something meaningful, both for myself and for others who face similar challenges, which leads to the creation of my web app, Chronically Well. Those with chronic illnesses, they face unique fitness challenges. Most existing platforms, they assume users have a healthy body and access to traditional gym equipment. My solution is a responsive fitness platform specifically designed for people with chronic illness in mind. It features workout routines that adapt to varying physical capabilities. It provides video demonstrations on proper form and modifications for different ability levels. And there are nutrition tracking tools that help users maintain macronutrient amounts for their day. I built this app using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for the front-end development for a responsive, accessible interface that works across many devices. And I also used Express.js and Node.js on the back-end development, providing a lightweight but sturdy foundation. And I had used the YouTube API for video integration and NutritionX API for comprehensive nutrition data. Let me show you this platform in action though. So the landing page, it provides accessible links to workout routines, nutrition planning, and a macronutrition calculator. And then as you can see, this page has a responsive design created to work across devices. In the macronutrient calculator page, it allows users to input their weight. They can select their activity level, and it then calculates their daily maintenance goals for calories, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. The nutrition tracking page, it integrates the NutritionX API to provide dynamically populated food based on the food items that you're searching for, as you can see in the example that I provided. Once the food item is found, the API returns specific information regarding calories, protein, carbs, and fats. The workout database is locally stored and it serves as the exercise library. The workouts are categorized by push, pull, and legs, and the exercise information is stored in a card format. So all of these will include a video player, sets, reps based on your experience level, the muscles that you're targeting, rest time, and modifications if needed. So I enjoyed making this project, but there were definitely some challenges that came along with it. The most difficult task, in my opinion, was the YouTube video integration. As you can see in the code snippet that I provided, I ended up using JavaScript to embed YouTube videos using the iframe, and it requires dynamically creating script tags and inserting them into the DOM. This approach ensures proper loading and video handling, making it more accessible to the user. And that is Chronically Well. And my name is April Sears. You can contact me through email, LinkedIn, or GitHub. Thank you all so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, April. I think this time around, I was really impressed with seeing from our students how they took really personal to them topics and made projects. So I think that's been something really cool to see, and we really enjoyed that. Up next, we have Rebecca Rader. Rebecca is a web development grad from McKee, Kentucky.
Hi, excuse me. I'm Rebecca Rader, as was stated, and I am originally from Maine, but I moved here with my husband a number of years ago. He's from here, so that's why we moved here. I'm a freelance graphic designer in my spare time. I'm also a writer in my spare time, and I worked in the service industry before that. Some of my goals I've had in mind while working with CodeU has been to become self-sufficient and to have better job stability and to never stop learning the things I'm passionate about. Why I chose the CodeU program. Tech has always been a sort of passion of mine. I've done coding in the past for JSync and MyBB forums, as well as Wikia, also known as fandoms. It's where I got my interest in coding. And I saw what other people were doing and I wanted to learn how to do it. And CodeU gave me that opportunity to turn what has become a hobby into a profession. And I look forward to continuing my education with this program by doing the data analyst pathway this next go around. What inspired this project? When it comes to learning about tarot, it's always been an interest of mine. I find most sites hard to navigate. They're usually full of advertisements and just really flashy. And I wanted to do something that was simple for anyone to use, but also ensure that the users would still understand, what tarot means and what the reading means. So I also recognize that there's the way I've coded this has potential for other uses as well and other ideas I have. Some of the elements of this project are HTML, CSS, which I've been fluent in for a little while now. JavaScript, which I've just learned recently and have had a lot of fun with. Node and Express. Also media queries to make sure that it will work on whether it's a cell phone or a PC and still look good. And a Tarot API. This is my project. As you can see, it's a 3-card spread that you're looking at, and has the functionality to draw a card and then shuffle the cards. And the data from the Tarot API comes across as structured JSON. The data is then parsed into different fields. So the title of the cards is one field. The description below the draw card button is another field. And then if you hover over the question mark, you get a pop-up, which is the meaning of the tarot card. And I also added in an export card function so that people who want to remember their reading. One of my most significant challenges was probably the functioning API. I had never worked with an API before, so it wasn't easy at first, but I stuck with it, and I had a lot of help, and a lot of it came down to just making sure my HTML and my JavaScript matched up with what I needed to go where. Then I also had a little problem with correct markup. I didn't realize I spent 3 days stuck on something because the backtick isn't the same as the single quotation mark, and I didn't notice it when I was doing the coding. So, sometimes with coding, it comes down to that little tiny detail. And this is my contact information. Feel free to reach out in any of the ways that make sense. And thank you so much for letting me present.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Yeah, getting the colon or the comma or the missing thing, that's the thing that takes you down. That's kind of rough, but I'm glad you were able to figure it out. All right. Well, thank you again. And next we have another web development grad. We are going to hear from Bree Anderson. Bree took our web development course and she's from the Louisville region.
Thanks, Shannon. Um, Hi, everyone. My name is Bree Anderson, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to present my project to you today. A bit about my background. I've been here in Louisville for over 20 years now. I'm from a military family, so I've spent some time in Virginia, Missouri, and Germany before settling here in Kentucky. I have a Bachelor's of Design in Digital Multimedia Design from Penn State, and I've recently completed the Web Development Pathway with CodeU. I come from a traditional art background where I focused on drawing and painting, and I made the transition to digital art pretty recently in my journey. When I was in college, I took intro courses in web design and programming with Java, which encouraged me to learn more about the tech field. I discovered CodeU after graduating and chose to participate in the program for the chance to build my portfolio and connect with others in the tech industry. Right now, my goal is to grow professionally by acquiring more work experience, and I'm currently interested in remote, hybrid, or contract positions. For my project, I wanted to learn how to work with the JavaScript library to create interactive visualizations for a data set from the Louisville Open Data website. I focused primarily on creating visuals for the raw data, which was originally presented in a CSV file and table format. I decided to work with this particular data set because I wanted to highlight the state of foreclosures in the city and better understand housing insecurity trends. So the website consists of 3 pages. It has an introductory page with a button used to display information, and it has a page with a chart displaying the number of foreclosures in Louisville over a period of 10 years. And it also has a map page showing the neighborhoods with high concentrations of foreclosure. I used D3 to create a bar chart that visualizes foreclosure data over time. The data was organized by year using a function that allows you to group data into categories. By doing so, I was able to count how many foreclosures happened in each year. The count data was then converted into an array of objects containing the year and count properties, which were used to create the X and Y axis. I created 1 rectangle per year, and the bar's height is based on the foreclosure count, and they appear along the x-axis in accordance with their corresponding years. The chart has an interactive component. The bar's color darkens, and a tooltip is displayed showing the number of foreclosures that occurred for the highlighted year. And this helps the user find specific values without having to determine the number by looking at the y-axis. I used the leaflet library and map tiles from OpenStreetMap to dynamically create the map. The map is drawn by fetching data from 2 files hosted on GitHub, a neighborhood.geojson file, which contains the boundaries and names of all the Louisville neighborhoods, and a foreclosure.json file, which contains information for the number of foreclosures associated with each neighborhood. The foreclosure count was added to each neighborhood's properties in the GeoJSON data, and a color was assigned to each neighborhood based on its foreclosure count. When you hover over a neighborhood, the name and foreclosure count information is displayed within an info box in the top right-hand corner of the map. And areas with high concentrations like Russell and Park Hill are highlighted with darker colors. One of the challenges I had when working on my project was difficulty understanding how to use D3's rollup function to group my data into the 2 categories I wanted to work with. So I was able to use ChatGPT to assist me with figuring out how to group the foreclosure data by year. And the original data had individual records for each foreclosure, and each one included a full sale date. And I needed to group all the foreclosures by year so I could count how many occurred in each time period. And then I asked ChatGPT how to use the d3.rollup method to accomplish this task, which allowed me to group all of the entries from the dataset by year. I was then able to get the full date using JavaScript's getFullYear method. Another challenge I faced was that I didn't have a ready-made GeoJSON file, And then to overcome this, I used a web application called Felt to create a file containing coordinates in order to draw paths and create the polygons for each neighborhood. And then I used ChatGPT to pull the information I needed from both the newly created file and from the original JSON file. So Code.U has been a great experience for me. I think 2 lessons participating in the program has taught me are the importance of documentation and its role with communicating with other developers, and the need to remain adaptable while working on a project. I've also learned how to incorporate constructive feedback from my mentors and other students, and to prioritize functionality before implementing additional features when working on a project. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I would love to hear your thoughts or feedback about my project. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions or to connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bree. And that brings us to a little bit over the halfway point. Just as a reminder, if you all have any questions for our presenters, you can go ahead and start throwing those in the chat. Let us know who it's for, and Allie's going to be compiling those and asking questions once we're done with all of the presentations. But thank you again, Bree. Next up, we have Eocleus Beska, a data analysis grad from Louisville.
Hello, my name is Euclides Vesca, and I'm here to talk about asylum seekers worldwide. Why did I choose this subject? There are 3 reasons that made me choose this subject. The first, I was born in Venezuela, and in 2013, I decided to move to the capital and start my college career. As many of you know, this is how Venezuela looked in 2013. Everybody, reality became just fighting the dictatorship, and that brought a lot of violations of human rights, more persecution to the citizens, that ended up making 8 million Venezuelans seek asylum outside of the country. And when I came to America, I noticed that this is not an isolated case in history. Over the last 40 years, 100 million people have been displaced for their original country and seek asylum in foreign countries worldwide. How did I start tackling this analysis? The first thing I did was look for data sources. I noticed the UN Refugee Agency has asylum seekers data, and the World Bank has population data. Then I defined my project structure. What I wanted to do defining this project structure was creating a project that can scale. I knew I didn't have time to make like a huge project out of it, but modularity allows you to grow the project in time. So what I did was create 3 different classes. One cleaner class that his whole role is to grab the raw data and turn it into clean data. Then a data class that the role is just to manipulate the data and produce all this information needed to create a visualization, and a visualization class that is just for plotting and putting all the pieces together. This is called a pipeline software architecture. And what I mean about modularity is that if I ever want to change the raw data, I can just change the cleaner class, and the data class and visualization class still will continue to work. If I ever want to change the visualization class, the cleaner class and data class still work, and that allows it to scale. Now for my tech stack, I use Python as a programming language, Pandas as a data manipulation, Plotly for data visualization. Plotly was a big choice. I ended up going with Plotly because it allowed you to give way more variables to the user, and not overwhelm them or lose sight of the important parts, because it allows that to happen with interactions. And dashboard, interactive dashboards, origins and destinations. This is going to be the first plot that I show you guys. And it consists of 2 maps. One is the countries of origin. The second one is the countries of destination. The intensity of the color shows how much people was on each one of those regions. And thanks to Plotly, you can zoom in, zoom out. That gives you the location variable cover. Then you can also hover over, and I created and this hover over a lot of text to give more information to the user about that country specifically. So for example, if here we hover over Afghanistan, it will show you that it displaced 12 million people in the whole period, and it will tell you the top countries of destinations. If you hover over to the destination map, it will tell you, like, for example, Germany received 7.5 million asylum seekers, and the top countries they originated from are Ukraine, Syria, Serbia, Turkey, and so on. Also, I added a slider in the bottom of the graph that allows you to choose the period that you want to see. You don't want to see, you just don't have to see the whole period. You can choose between and see how the migrations move all around the world. A specific country history. So let's say you want to choose one of these countries and know more about their history, right? I created another graph that allows you, for example, to choose Afghanistan. It will tell you on the top what their timeline of migration looks like, so you can see what years are more complicated for them and why, and start researching why they got displaced. And in the bottom, you also have a map that shows you the country in red and all the destination countries in blue. The coding process. Now I want to put these two pieces together, the structure and the graphs. So how, like I said, the cleaner class outputs a CSV file of clean data. Then the data class grabs that CSV file and turns it, does all the data manipulations needed for the visualization and outputs a pandas data frame. And then the visualization grabs all the pandas data frame and creates all the different aspects that I showed you before. There are more plots on the GitHub repo, but for time's sakes, I cannot explain all of them to you. I just picked the funnest one. This is more statistical. And my personal background, I earned a bachelor in business administration back in Venezuela. I have experience working on with freelance and with software organization. I finished 2 Code U programs, one in software development and one in data analytics. I'm currently based in Louisville, Kentucky. I have experience on C#, Python, VBA, Lua, and C. And this is my contact information. Thank you so much for your time. The last thing I want to say is that code always empowered me a lot. Like when I live back home, I was able to freelance and get a different income. And now Code U has given me the chance to be involved in this community and keep growing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eocles, and we love having you as part of our community. So we are glad that you were able to make it here and be a part with us. All right, well, coming up next, we have Mark Kidd. Mark is a software development grad from Little Mud Creek in Floyd County, Kentucky.
Thank you very much. I'm Mark Kidd, and I'm going to present a bit about my app named Microclimate Explorer. As you mentioned, I'm joining today from the family farm on Little Mud Creek, where it's currently squash planting season, and that's a little bit relevant. We know it's squash planting season because Mother's Day weekend has passed, and the earliest corn is sprouting, and the cicadas have emerged this year. And so we'll get back to this theme of planting time. I enrolled in Code U because I was interested in pursuing some new career opportunities where technology maybe would be even more central than it has been in the past. But technology has always been pretty important to my career. And I've had roles like project manager, curriculum designer, and technical writer where technology is often a part of like the product itself, but has definitely been a part of my workflow. Another common theme in my work has been opportunities where I can kind of serve as a translator role or a communicator or an advocate, sometimes between two different groups of engineers or users and developers or farmers and media artists. And I think this Microclimate Explorer might be a good example of how I use my experience in different domains to kind of articulate something useful. And I want to start by briefly defining microclimate. And so in agriculture and many parts of life, even a very small distance can make a pretty big difference in climate. And so sometimes two different fields in the same farm, let alone fields on neighboring farms or farms across the country from each other, can have very different conditions. And so microclimate's kind of the concept for that. And as you can imagine, like it really matters to know some things like when is the best week to plant, or if it's been cold this year, like should we hold off hiring our seasonal help an extra week or two? And so there are many situations where having this kind of fine-tuned data can help make decisions on the farm. And for people working in technology and farmers, this is like an amazing period for weather data. But if you're out there trying to make plans, I've found that a lot of the data available is really granular in a sense that you can put in like any GPS coordinate on the earth probably, and you might get like historical, present, maybe even like forecast data. But it turns out that, you might be pretty far from weather stations, and a lot of that data has been like parsed through algorithms and now like LLMs. And so this project is a little more concerned with being able to find like granularity in the sense of like a specific weather station or maybe what's nearby me so that I can make, some decisions knowing, where they are on the other side of the mountain. And so fortunately, there is some data like that. It's not as readily available, but it's collected by a couple programs. One's called the Citizen Weather Observation Program. That's some technology that goes all the way back to ham radio. We're going to access that in a minute. There's another one called Mesonet that aggregates a ton of like climate sensors. And there's even more data available publicly through NOAA, this big MADIS database, but it's not always hard to access it, or, excuse me, it's always easy to get it in a usable form. So that's why we're going to look at this Find You interface, and of course my app itself. In developing this, I decided that the most important functionality for version 1 would be making it as easy as possible to get GPS coordinates in there so you can go kind of look at data and explore climates. So we have 3 options now. You can request the location, and on my laptop, it's actually getting like a ISP location. So this is like closer to Louisville than Eastern Kentucky, these coordinates. And option 3, though, we can use geocoding via this OpenCage API to type in like a human type name or address. And oftentimes it'll be able to convert that for us into a GPS coordinate. And that, when it's successful, will appear up at the top in the same place as the, I'm trying to think of the geolocated ISP coordinates earlier. Okay, and I recognize the coordinates have changed. And the next button is active because there are good coordinates in there. And so we're going to go ahead and click that here. And at this point, we can look at some weather stations. There are 2 options here presently because when we're doing the live database, we're actually scraping a web page with permission. And we don't want to, I don't want to do that 100 or 1,000 times. So the app also has a feature where we can save the web page with some results and parse that. Anyway, here's some live results recorded to video from the coordinates that the app found earlier. And so it's parsed that web page, and we've got now some like real granular, sometimes like a little bit older. And every once in a while, you'll see a bunch of like humidity 99% or 1%, and you think this might need to be cleaned. But we know when we're looking at this that we've got real actual weather stations. We can look up these station names and get more details about them and make informed decisions, including like feeding them to our own AI. That's probably in a future version of this. So this software was created using C# with Maui Blazor for the UI and kind of cross-platform potential. I really made use of Copilot and Cloud. It was very educational and helpful for in a variety of ways. I've mentioned OpenCage and the CWOP. The last technology I mentioned is also a challenge. I discovered that Find You, there's like this really unique in some ways weather API is being deprecated. And so parts of it are offline intermittently and they're not going to fix it. So that's a challenge for future development. I also really wanted to draw maps. And that's kind of challenging, or it was a little bit challenging for me. Adding an HTML canvas is probably a future feature that will allow us to draw some maps. Well, I want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate any questions you have for me later. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mark. That was an awesome presentation. All right, well, we are down to our last 2. Next, we have Carmen Hall, a data analysis grad from Lexington.
Hi, I am Carmen Hall. I completed the data analytics pathway and I did my project on music and stress reduction. I am a United States Navy veteran. I served on the USS George H.W. Bush as a naval nuclear electrician. Following my service, I moved to Central Kentucky, where I reside in Lexington, and I started my career in the healthcare industry, starting in operations, moving toward reporting analytics role. For career growth, I noticed that a lot of job requisitions require the use or skills with SQL, Python, and data visualization tools such as Tableau. So this led me to a Google search to see where I could find or acquire those skills in Kentucky, and I found the CodeU program, and I liked all the resources that was listed on their website. A little bit more about me is I love music of all genres. And I believe that music has the ability to heal or at the very least calm you down if you're in a very stressful situation. This led to me wondering if there was a genre that was the most effective at improving your mental health or your mood, as well as what would be the top song within that genre. The process was I utilized two data sets. The music and mental health survey data set is where survey respondents self-identified their mental health conditions and ranked it on a scale of 0 to 10, their favorite genre, and whether or not that favorite genre had any effect on their mental health. The Spotify data set ranked the songs based on streams from high to low popularity. Knowing, as I mentioned earlier, that I wanted to get skills in SQL, I utilized this as an opportunity to organize and clean my data. For the survey data set, I was able to remove unnecessary columns, provide a filtering option to where I would only have Spotify as the primary streaming service, and also do some aggregate functions. And for my Spotify data set, I did a union for the high and low popularity of songs, and then organize it from highest to lowest, as well as sorting it by genre. In Python, using various libraries, I was able to complete my analysis, and on the screen, I have an example of the correlation matrices that I did for the survey and Spotify dataset. For the survey dataset, anxiety and depression had a bit of a correlation, and so then I wanted to check to see what the top genres were for those mental health conditions. They were rock, pop, and metal. This represented 36% of survey respondents who identified having anxiety and depression at a level of 6 or greater. My Spotify dataset had a correlation for energy and loudness, which I found to be very interesting as those are attributes of rock, pop, and metal music. And down below, I have a couple images of some waveforms that I did. The waveforms represent the top song within the genre, and with them, I was checking to see if there was any similarities within the patterns of the waveform for those top songs. I wanted to share a little bit of how I organized my information in the Jupyter Notebook. In Markdown, I utilize headers, subheaders, sentences, and then within the cells, this nice little hashtag to just kind of keep whoever was looking at the notebook abreast of what I was doing. I also organized my data to where I did one data set at a time. As this was new to me, I wanted to keep everything very succinct and clear. So I started with the music and mental health survey, performed an analysis here, and then over in this tab is where I did my Spotify music data set, also utilizing lists with numbers and Markdown, just so that whoever's reading it can understand or have an idea of what is to come. Following all of this, I did use the clean data frames for music, the correction for the survey, and the Spotify data set to merge them and then come up with my conclusions for the project. The main challenge was that when I noticed that based on the statistical method that I chose to calculate the upper and lower confidence intervals, that there was overlap. And basically, that meant that I would not be able to definitively state that one genre was the best genre. Even though earlier, while rock, pop, and metal were popular among 36% of survey respondents with those high reported levels of anxiety and depression, my findings based on my statistical methods still state that one genre is not more effective than the other. And on the table on the right, you could see that the improved percentage does show, for the most part, across all genres, that music is still effective at improving your mental health. This was a huge lesson learned for me because I thought once I had the data, I would be able to see exactly what I wanted to see. I would get the data that I wanted. And I learned quickly that it is important to report the findings as it relates to your data. But it's also equally as important as to look for other things that the information within the data can tell you about how to perform an analysis. Some things that I learned about myself is as a virtual learner, I am great at collaborating. I enjoy sharing what I think about different things, as well as hearing what others think about a project or how to solve a problem. I learned how to communicate more effectively tech with those who are not of the tech world. And as I stated earlier in my presentation, I was able to gain skills using Python, SQL, as well as Tableau Public and GitHub. Here's my contact information. Please reach out, contact me, link with me on LinkedIn, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Carmen. That was awesome. I think the music aspect definitely resonated with some folks in the chat. That was great. Well, we are already at our last presentation. Just another reminder that if you all have any questions for any of the presenters you've seen today, feel free to go ahead and start throwing those in the chat, and Allie will be keeping tabs on those. But to wrap us up, we have Martin Otis. Martin is a web development grad from Covington, Kentucky.
Hello, everybody. I'm Martin Otis in Covington, Kentucky. My background is in brand development, visual identities, and packaging for consumer packaged goods, predominantly in wines and spirits. I've had a solid foundation in HTML and CSS for some time, but I came to CodeU with no prior experience in JavaScript. I joined the program to build that foundation and start creating more interactive, dynamic web experiences. For my project, I chose to build on a brand I'd already created because it gave me a unique opportunity to bring that brand to life in a more engaging, functional way. It also allowed me to apply what I've learned with CodeU, especially around interactivity, back-end logic, and working with APIs, and put it into a context that was personally meaningful. The project is built using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, along with Node.js and Express.js for the back-end server. I used and created a SQLite database that has 2 tables, one for product data and one for storing orders. I also built 3 custom REST APIs, 2 for retrieving data from the database and 1 for saving data to it from the front end. Excuse me. I created 2 product-related APIs that use the GET method to retrieve product information from the SQL database. These APIs are written in JavaScript with a bit of SQL to query the database. They each return a JSON package, which is then parsed to dynamically generate HTML on specific pages. The All Products API calls the data to dynamically populate the spirits or all products page, while the single product API uses each product's unique ID to fetch details for one specific product at a time for display on the single product HTML template. The shopping carts let users change quantities or remove items. Subtotals and totals update in real time, and the whole cart is saved in the browser's local storage. That means it sticks around even if the user refreshes the page or comes back later. It will persist in local storage until users clear their cache, delete items manually, or complete a checkout sequence. During checkout, I use JavaScript regular expressions to validate user inputs like email, zip code, and payment information. If a user's input doesn't meet expected formats or patterns, they get immediate feedback with specific error messages. Once validated, the cart is submitted via my third REST API, or what I call the Orders API, which saves the data to the database. Saving the orders data was the most challenging part of the project for me. After many failed attempts, I returned to online research and learned that SQL databases can't store complex data structures like arrays or objects, and this was the root of the issue. Once I understood that, though, I was able to write code to parse the cart array into a JSON formatted string for proper storage in the database. Each successful order creates a new row in the orders table, and the cart data is then cleared from local storage. For debugging, I log successes or failures to the console along with the serialized cart data for further verification. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm always excited to connect with others who value solid development and thoughtful design. If you'd like to take a more in-depth look at my project, feel free to explore the code on GitHub. I'm open to great opportunities and conversations. My contact details are on the screen if you'd ever like to get in touch. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Martin. And thank you to all of our presenters. I think I was really impressed this time around with the quality of projects rather, that we had coming out of our August cohort. I think this cohort did an awesome job of thinking of projects that were really meaningful to them and that resonated with their personal lives, and they were able to take those skills. Well, like I mentioned, we are going to move into a Q&A section. Before I hand it over to Allie, just a reminder for our employer partners on the call, I'll be following up early next week with a recording of the event, as well as a folder of resumes from our participants. So if there's anyone you would like to follow up with, you will have the opportunity to do so. If you are just really raring to go and want to get connected quicker, feel free to reach out to me, Shannon@codu.org, and I can get you connected before that time. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Allie Rippey, our Employer Relationships Manager, who's going to manage our Q&A today.
Hey everyone. So I didn't notice too many questions in the chat. I do have just questions that I came up with as people were going through. But before I start launching into that by presenter, I'd love to see if anybody wants to hop off mute and ask a follow-up question about any of the projects. But otherwise, I do have some, so we can just have some elaboration from our presenters. No? Okay. So I'm going to go in order of presentation, just because that's the way that I organize this. So, Jeannie, after, you talked a little bit about how you're wanting to make a career shift, and I know this because we've connected personally. Can you elaborate a little bit on what made you interested in shifting from where you're at currently to data science? And, how could you kind of played a role in that?
Currently working in data management is a small piece of data science. Data science is much more well-rounded, and I want to be a well-rounded individual so that I can handle more than just managing and cleaning the data. I want to be able to do the visualizations, do more analysis, and do more presentation of the data, and be able to take the data to tell stories, which my current data management background doesn't give me that much of an opportunity to explore the other areas of data science.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to have you get you have a chance to talk about that. My next question is for Landon. I know you said, like everybody did, that you ran into some challenges during your project, but I was just wondering if you started from the beginning again, if there's anything that you would have done differently. Yeah.
So I kind of went in a little bit depth with the .NET downgrading. Honestly, if I were to do it again, I knew how terrifying it sounded going in, but I decided to accept that challenge. I probably wouldn't accept that challenge again, just because it's probably one of the biggest tasks you can do with, or that's at least what the web told me after it told me it wasn't too bad. Honestly, I asked ChatGPT how bad it would be, and they were just like, "Oh, it's fine." And then after, like, I don't know, pretty deep into it, it was like, "Yeah, that's one of the most difficult things you can do." I'm like, well, I guess, like they said, don't listen to everything ChatGPT says. So if I were to go back, I probably wouldn't have gone down that path.
Sure. Had a feeling you might say something about that. Awesome. So next, I just wanted to talk to April. Obviously, April, your project was really close to home and personal. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about what work-life balance kind of means to you and how you juggled that with the course. Everyone here pretty much knows that it's really requires you to be a self-starter to complete this course, much less perform so well you're on demo day. So if you can just talk a little bit about like how you manage that with the life's other responsibilities.
Yeah, so I'm a full-time Kentucky State employee, and I go into work Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and work from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But my work-life balance recently has been basically I have to set myself up for a remote position just because of my health. So I've been doing Code U at night on the weekends, and every bit of downtime that I have. And I really found now that like I just love to play on the computer now. I've always liked to, but now I just love to create things. And it's more of a hobby even than like a job.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Cool. So next we have Rebecca. Um, I was just going to ask, let's see, did you have any misconceptions about tech or coding that, once you started taking this course that kind of were dispelled, or did you learn anything that surprised you? I don't know, kind of just anything that you learned about the industry as you went through this program.
I mean, the AI kind of surprised me. I mean, API kind of surprised me a bit because it wasn't something I had considered when I took the course that I would learn. I didn't even know what APIs were back then. So I thought they were going to be terrifying and the hardest part. And they were a bit, but I think I also nailed it in the end. So I'm happy about that.
Awesome. Great answer. Um, and then Bree, I was just going to ask you a little bit about how you came up with your project. Like, was there a moment when you were looking at some data or, you were like, what if I explored this more when it came around to what your project was about?
Well, I knew originally that I kind of wanted to work on like a data visualization, like just making charts and things like that. And I wanted to work with one of the libraries, like either chart.js or I ended up using D3, but I hadn't really decided when I was looking through data sets. But um, I wanted to do something kind of local, and I live in Louisville, so I thought I would go to the Louisville Open Data website and then I think I ended up doing the foreclosure data just because, yeah, I thought it was an interesting topic. So
Great. That's awesome. And Eocleus, this one is for you. If you could just tell us a little bit about how, I know you have an MBA, about how you're wanting to merge, those skills with what you've learned in tech so far, specifically in training with CodeU.
Thank you. Yes, well, mostly I love problem solving. I love coding. I was an Olympic mathematician when I was in high school, and coding always gives me that same feeling of solving problems. Uh, my degree in business, what allows me to do is just get a subject and start analyzing it and analyzing it, and all these different ways that now I can create tools for people to understand or for companies to work with has been really my main focus. So I work with some companies and I develop some productivity trackers for them with the employers that they grab the data of each object produced and show some visualizations and all that stuff. But yeah, that's the way I wanna join the two. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. And then Mark, I've got you next. I know you had some previous experience in technology and definitely in agriculture. So I'm curious when you were working on this project or just in the course in general, what you think the most valuable thing you learned is in terms of like developing your skills, either in tech or in your other background.
I think that I've worked as a technical writer and as a journalist, and I've also done some software development, but mostly in like legacy languages, like early C, pretty low level. And I think this project really helped me like do. I wouldn't want to call it architecture. That seems a little bit grandiose, but how to like structure the project and like as I like at a higher level with C sharp, and I feel like the AI using AI at the same time as I was learning C sharp was a real revelation because it was sort of like, how do you divide up your project conceptually so that like collecting coordinates three different ways and that makes sense on a human level, but then also like as I'm working to prototype those with an AI, just trying to figure out like how much is too much to send an AI when you're asking for advice and how that relates to asking for help from humans. Anyway, yeah, it's still very thought-provoking.
Yeah, definitely a process, and I'm sure will change as AI changes. But cool. My next question is for Carmen. So you mentioned your findings surprised you, and so that just made me think, if you were to take your project like a step further or do a new like related project, is there anything that you've thought about that you would do to elaborate on the existing data, like do another survey or, anything like that?
Yes. So what I think I would do differently, or at least to broaden the data pool, when I filtered it down to Spotify only, it shrank that data pool down a little bit. So I probably would have at least tried to find more streaming services such as YouTube Music, and just there are a couple others that I think that would have at least given me a little bit more data to potentially have had more or no overlap with those confidence intervals. But what really just surprised me was that there wasn't one genre. Every time you're on hold, you hear classical music. So I think I went in there a little biased thinking, oh, classical is going to be the one that stands out. But it just turns out you like what you like, and that's what you're going to listen to when you want to de-stress.
Yeah, that's interesting. I liked your point about like I've just got to present this data either way, even though it didn't track with what I was assuming was going to happen. But yeah, that's how it is, right? And then lastly, Mark, I just wanted you to tell us a little bit about if you think that your skills from your background in brand development really came in handy during your project. I personally feel like, your project was very aesthetically pleasing, so that definitely helped. But anything beyond that, like, more hard skills in terms of how that background supported you either in the program or in this project?
Well, it definitely set up the look and feel for the entire project, not just the bottles in place, but like making what do the headers look like? What does the small footer look like? What are other font choices? So everything does hang off of that initial branding um, creation. Other than that, it's remarkable how alike the processes are. You start with nothing and you have to solve a problem. So creating a brand isn't very different than creating a website. And when you really boil down to it, you're talking about a level of storytelling. You're doing it in a very different way, but in the end of the day, you're trying to communicate something to other people to get them engaged in what you're making. You want them to look at it. You want them to look at the bottle. You want them to engage with the brand. You want them to like click around on the website. They're really not that far apart when you start thinking about these things. So it really isn't that big of a jump for me. Again, like I said, it really comes down to stories, making a compelling story, and then how you put it together is really up to you and your skills.
That's great. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for elaborating so well, everybody. I just wanted to kind of give everybody another chance to follow up about some different things. And of course, if anybody has additional questions or wants to connect with the graduates about their projects or anything, feel free to reach out to them or follow up with Shannon when she sends out that info next week. I'll hand it back to you, Shannon.
Yeah, thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you To our presenters, congratulations on graduating from your course, and you all had such fantastic presentations. We're looking forward to working with you all as you start or maybe continue your job hunt. And then thank you to our employer partners and community members and students and mentors and other staff members who attended to support our presenters. This is always one of my favorite events that we do. I think I don't always get to see the end product from our students, so it's really cool to see what they're actually doing in those courses. So like we mentioned, I will send some follow-ups, including a recording of the event that you're welcome to share with your colleagues. We'll have a resume folder from the presenters, as well as links to our grad databases that have some other job seekers in there. If you have any questions or need anything in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me, Shannon at codeu.org, or if you have a regular contact with the program, that works as well. Our next demo day will be probably in September. We have a course that kicked off in January. Those folks are going to be wrapping up in early August. And then we will likely have another demo day in January for our cohort that just started last week. So keep an eye out for invites to that. We would love to have you there. But thank you all again so much, and we hope to see you soon.